So we're talking about scores. Yeah, and you
I'm
mentioned
only
that.
referring to the animated one,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. So, and you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, whether this airs before or after, but on our episodes for the 11 to 20 rankings, you brought up that Aladdin was like in the top 20 or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think. Well, you know that I love animated Disney movies, like particularly the really good ones. I mean, I would say. Well, I could just tell you right now, I have. Yeah, Aladdin is my favorite of all of them, and I love the score for that. But I mean, I have the soundtrack for Aladdin, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Tarzan, a couple others on my phone. Like it's like not something I listen to all the time, but if I'm in the mood for it, I mean, those are all really wonderful, wonderful scores. Alan Menken did a lot of those. He's really awesome.
Well, the before we jump into like live action movies, I will say, because I've watched a lot of animated movies in the last couple of years with the kids during the pandemic, the original Jungle Book
Oh
has
yeah,
great music.
I've
Like the
got two or
music
three
there.
songs from that one.
Yeah, it's that stuff is super catchy. Like it's just really good stuff.
The one,
Um,
"Be Like You" or something like that. It's
yeah,
it's
to be like you.
King Louis and the bear and Baloo the bear singing with each other. That one's excellent.
Yeah, no, no, it's some really good vocalization, and the band that plays is just cool stuff. Like it's really nice when they bring like really true musicians that kind of like into the yeah, no, for sure. And nowadays they do it with Lin-Manuel Miranda and other ones. They kind of bring them
Sure.
in and like get them, and leading into live action, it is interesting how Paul Thomas Anderson brought Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, and there's some other musicians that kind of like been brought on. Even Pink Floyd, I think back in the '60s or something, they did a score for like I don't know which movie it was, but yeah, some Italian movie or something. So there's a history of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but scores. What are you guys' thoughts about like like stuff that just jumps at you as all-time great scores, favorites? Aside from
Uh,
Star Wars, the obvious.
I was gonna say it's
yeah,
on the list.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, John Williams, obviously, most of his
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
almost everything.
The funny thing is, the last time I turned on the film Glory, my dad was in the room and he was asking me what I was watching, and oh, I'm watching Glory. Oh, that's the movie with the great music.
It
I,
does have
I,
very good music.
James Horner, may he rest in peace. That man uh, made some of the best music, as far as I'm concerned, in the history of cinema. Obviously, Glory, Apollo 13,
Mask of Zorro.
The New World.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was all over the film industry until I think he died in a plane crash, uh, and at the age of 61. I mean, the guy, it made some of the most iconic scores ever. I'll always admire his contributions. So yeah,
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's definitely the Ennio Morricone, like
Oh yeah.
the
yeah,
whole like bringing him like in the whole Italian angle that was into westerns of all things, and then all the rest of the movies that he's done, including he did the score for Hateful Eight. I think was one of
Yeah,
his
he
last
did. Yeah,
ones.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost easier, I guess, to talk composer, and the more modern sense. There's like Clint Mansell. I feel like that
I was gonna bring
the
him
the,
up
yeah,
the
too.
infamous Fountain score.
Lux
That's
Eterna
like
yeah.
also.
yeah,
Requiem
um,
for a Dream.
yeah, exactly. Like Working for a Dream was really where he kind of like just like blew it to the scene, I guess, as far as
Yeah.
like creating a theme that was very memorable.
For me, I was gonna just mention that like I kind of almost like divide them up into two parts because and it's hard for me to remember the second ones, but there's so many movies I think have great music, but it's music that I would never really be listening to in my car. You know, I would never like go out of my way to listen to it. It was just perfect for the movie. Like a lot of ones that jump into my mind are like The Dark Knight. Everyone talks about Inception, of course, a lot, but like, you know, those ones, they're not really music so much as it's like big sounds and stuff. You
Yeah,
know?
well, that's
But
it's funny because I was going to bring that. Hans Zimmer has been
yeah,
a Hollywood darling for a while and just won an Oscar
yes,
and a
yeah,
second one. And yeah, I used to have a hate relationship with him,
yeah.
and
I
I think it's
remember you
evolved.
talking about him a lot.
I used to really dislike him, and it took a turn with The Dark Knight because it was really like I felt like he was taking a turn. And then, Man of Steel, which will air before this. We didn't talk about the score, but that score was pretty good. But yes, nothing. I'm very sorry, but like it's just, and this is important to point out with John Williams. As much as Star Wars, he gets credit for, the Superman score is
Mm,
an all-time great theme. Like that theme is unmatched for me
Yeah.
personally. Like it's just that kind of stuff is just divine. But yeah, you can't compare Hans Zimmer to someone like John Williams, and maybe that's something that we could discuss. Is that I do feel like you take the like the Danny Elfmans, the John Williams, like the people who were like big in the 80s and 90s. It does feel like there are big bombastic themes, and modern movies, I feel like it's all about being maybe almost slightly invisible, the
right.
music. It doesn't have as
Most of the
much
time,
of a
anyway.
character, and I wonder like if what's up with that. Like it's you don't have the Ennio Morricones and that just really, oh, what the fuck is that? Like, why is there a guitar in a western, like that kind of stuff. Like there's the occasional, you brought up the theme for before we were recording, the theme for Wonder Woman.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure who did that. I guess it was first
I
in
don't know.
Justice League. Oh
Uh,
no, Batman
No, it
versus.
was in Batman v Superman.
actually, if I may interject briefly about Hans Zimmer, the thing with Hans Zimmer is that I think his best stuff came in the '90s. I mean, like he made, he did the score for the Thin Red Line. He did the score for Gladiator. Well, that was 2000. I
Yeah,
mean, even his music for The Rock was
yeah, that
pretty
was
damn good.
really good. Yeah.
I mean, Backdraft, Crimson Tide.
Oh, all
I
good.
mean, all of those are really good scores that were actually kind of that '90s music where the music was was actually part of the character of the movie.
Yeah.
He
Meh.
only
I
uh,
those
uh,
movies though are not memorable to me for the music. Not at
Oh,
all.
not Backdraft? You serious?
Nah.
That moment at the end, spoiler alert for everybody, but like where like he's been such a bad probie the whole time, and then like Kurt Russell's dying on that like catwalk, and then like he's like throws the fire extinguisher like a hand grenade, and then grabs the thing super melodramatically, the hose, and starts spraying all the fire down, and the music's like whoa, and then like the guys grab Kurt Russell, and he's like, look at him. Look at him. That's my brother. God damn it. It's like so fucking good.
the music for Backdraft is basically the trailer music for every action movie for 10 years after that movie came out.
Yeah, but yeah, he's got
Anyway.
like this whole rhythmic thing. Bup, 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 bup. I gained some respect for him because I learned and didn't mention it when we spoke about Man of Steel that for
Also, sorry. Also, Hans Zimmer did the music to The Lion King,
it's fine.
the
I think
original
the songs were
score.
better than the
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
than
was
the
gonna say,
score.
I mean, it's like
Yeah, but
it's Elton John, right? I mean, doing a lot
yeah,
of those
right.
songs.
Yeah, right. He just did the score,
Yeah.
but
What
yeah,
were you gonna say, Gil?
Oh, I was gonna say like I gained some respect to him too. He's getting adventurous in his older age, so I'll give him that. He's for the Man of Steel recordings, he brought like all the best drummers in the world. Some of them are like like the drummer from Tool, from A Perfect
Mm,
Circle, like from rock bands, like known rock bands, and just kind of had him record like da 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 dum da 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 dum, like like rhythmic percussion, and he kind of mixed it all together to like have this this booming sound of drums. So I was like, that's cool that he did that. So like, it's nice that these very successful composers kind of say like, what can I do differently? So I've gained respect for him over the years, but he is just very just rhythmic and not that interesting. Like the Dune theme was good. It was different. It was trying to do something different, but not that much. Like
Yeah.
it's not memorable. But
Um,
maybe that's just like where we are now with movies. Maybe the themes are not supposed to be memorable.
Matt mentioned Gladiator, and I was just gonna, before we move on from Hans Zimmer, I was just gonna say, even though I like both of them, I felt that Gladiator sounded a little, or whichever way you want to say this. Gladiator and Black Hawk Down both were very good, but they both sounded a little too much like each other for being entirely different movies.
Yeah, well, a lot of this stuff sounds
Yeah, but
same.
very true.
Yeah. Another like a blast from the past, like an earlier like trailblazer was Bernard Herrmann. Like I feel like he kind of started the whole thing that John Williams took over. I feel like is the whole creating very strong, memorable themes that really were just bombastic. Like he just really made movie music big and noticeable, and
Mm,
he did the Twilight Zone theme as
mm.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did Psycho, if I'm not
Oh, that's a good
mistaken.
one.
Yeah, like he's got some crazy and like North by Northwest, a lot of Hitchcock
Oh,
ones.
that's a good one.
Yeah, no, it's just
Yeah.
Vertigo to like, and he's got some non. He did Citizen Kane, which wasn't as memorable, but still, it is interesting that push and pull between, and it's not only music; it's also just you feel like in movies in general, some movies like want to have the editing look invisible, like that you don't notice the cuts, and then some like really want to,
Yeah,
So
but
it's I guess
it's
music
so
is.
noticeable with music, though. What you're talking about.
Yeah, and I guess it's a matter ultimately like anything with movies, it's what the story needs. If it needs invisible movies, music or no music at all, like No Country for Old Men, then that's what it is. But I do feel like, you think about the Sergio Leone westerns, and or for that matter, Star Wars. Those
Mhm.
like group of movies are nothing without the music.
True.
Like you would look at
It
those
is
movies.
a vital component.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
Sergio Leone movies, as amazing as they are, would be a snore without the music
Yeah,
sustaining you, and Star Wars would just not be convincing
it
or
would not
big
work.
enough without the music, without that
Nope.
like thing to fly you in space, like that score.
I mean, you guys, we've already talked about this in the
Mm.
episode where we were talking about heat and everything, and it seems that I'm the odd man out with this, but even though I mostly agree that it's probably the better of the two movies, I think the score in Heat is almost forgettable. But Last of the Mohicans is like one of the greatest scores of all time.
And I don't remember it all.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
well, actually, I agree that actually I was thinking about Heat as kind of an interesting contrast uh, to Last of the Mohicans. Last of the Mohicans was scored. I remember Randy Edelman. I don't
Trevor
remember the
Jones.
other Trevor Jones. Yeah, I remember Randy Edelman because he also did the score to Gettysburg, which
Ah,
is really epic and very well done. And I literally used to listen to the score from Gettysburg when I was doing my homework growing up. I really love that music. Yeah, I mean, Last of the Mohicans was um
incredible.
yeah, basically like quintessential good 90s movie music. Whereas Heat was so most of Heat's music was composed by Elliot Goldenthal. There are a couple of key moments in the musical score that were actually done by Moby.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
remember someone saying that.
I think I said that.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's just assume you were the one who said it. Yes.
yeah. So, like, but one of the pieces that was done by Moby was in the scene leading up to the coffee house sequence where,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Where the
where
helicopters are flying and stuff.
right, where Al Pacino is, driving behind Robert De Niro and traveling down the freeway. And but the thing is that music wasn't really composed by Moby. That was actually a Joy Division song, New Dawn Fades, which Moby modernized and instrumentalized for that sequence. But also the music at the end of the movie that led into the credits was composed by Moby. The rest was done by Elliot Goldenthal. But yeah, like I said in the Heat episode, I know way too much about Heat. Um,
Yeah, it's also good to mention Alan Silvestri did
oh, geez, yeah.
Back to the Future and Forrest Gump and
For sure.
and Predator, which is also a
That's a good
memorable
one.
theme.
Yeah.
See, that's like a good, like that's what Hans Zimmer did, the whole rhythmic thing, but I feel like that's more memorable.
Oh
Anyways.
well, I mean, I agree with you that the Predator theme is better than most of his. I mean, right up there with Predator, I would throw RoboCop and Terminator.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Terminator. That's true. Was that like in the 80s also the theme, or was it only
Well,
in the sequel?
no, it was in yeah, they both of them use the same theme music in the 80s one. Yeah.
Who did the Terminator?
You know, I don't know. I'm gonna click on it right now. Let's see.
That is a memorable theme. So
It was RoboCop. Only, a little more, RoboCop's a little on the nose.
mhm.
Are you guys familiar with the theme for Godzilla?
Which one?
Like the classic one. It's quite good.
You mean the one with Matthew Broderick?
No, oh my god. How dare you? Anyway, to answer your
The original.
question, Gil, the guy's
Brad
name is
Fidel.
Brad Fidel.
Fidel.
I don't know what else True Lies. Looks like mostly Schwarzenegger movies.
Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, I love that movie. It's such a guilty pleasure.
The I guess we should also bring up the scores of the 80s.
Yeah.
Like the whole like what I guess started in a way with like Blade Runner. And I guess that electronics guy Vangels, I forget the way you pronounce his name. But yeah, like a lot of people thought that was like really like a good score, which I did not. I wasn't crazy about it, but it's not bad. It's just not great. Yeah, I wonder if there's been some memorable. I feel like if anything, Clint Mansell actually does really well with the electronics music.
Yeah,
Like he actually does it better than they did in the 80s.
Yeah, I remember when we did our Gallipoli episode, there was a little bit of a discussion about, it's a World War I movie, and still there are like laser noises and everything in the score.
Yeah, and I brought up the whole Chariots of Fire, which is a memorable score, but still, it's very 80s.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, not 80s, but back to what Matt was saying with like the awesome 90s stuff. You got you mentioned this in an earlier podcast, Matt. I was surprised you hadn't brought it up yet, but Dragonheart.
Oh yeah.
Bad movie, good score.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode that we said about bad movies with great scores.
Yeah,
oh yeah, we could pretty much do that probably.
Who did the score for Dragonheart?
I don't know. I just remember the music.
Actually, on that point, I mean, I think one of Hans Zimmer's best scores was Pearl Harbor, and that was a terrible movie.
It was good music.
Actually, it's Randy Edelman, so someone you know. You just brought him up, no? The Last of the
I think
Mohicans.
we
Yeah,
did bring him up earlier. Yes.
and Gettysburg. Yeah, well,
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. He's quite
yeah,
the artist.
and
You guys know John Powell, the composer?
not off the top of my head.
I don't know everything he's done off the top of my head, but I was first like I saw the How to Train Your Dragon movie, and I was like, this has some pretty good music in it, and especially since I don't think that DreamWorks tends to have as good of music as like the Pixar movies and the Disney movies and stuff. But I looked him up and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And then they made the sequel, How to Train Your Dragon 2, which was even better. I'm pretty sure he went on to do a Star Wars movie too. I
He
think
did
he did
Solo.
the Solo one, yeah. But he's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably no Clint Mansell or something. But
No, that's the thing. There's a lot of good. I guess one that's pretty well known is Alexander Desplat. He's won
I
a
know
few
that name.
Oscars. The French composer. He is kind of
Oh, it
like
sounded
the
German.
really. No, I think he's French.
No,
but,
no, I'm joking.
Desplat. Yeah, it's very very French. Sorry.
Okay, Matt,
That's a
when you
joke.
said that, I was just like, what?
Yeah, I was like,
I did not get the sarcasm at all. I was like, no, it doesn't.
But in any case, yeah, I think he's done a few Wes Anderson movies and stuff, The French Dispatch and others.
Yeah.
Shape of Water, he did. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
did he? Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
he does like these very magical kind of like he's kind of like a toned down version of Danny Elfman. I feel like
Oh.
it says the magical without the darkness, magical
Oh.
music without the darkness.
Did you mention? I think you did already. Giannis Tierson or something like that. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
I don't think we brought him up. Honest
No?
Tierson.
He did like Amelie, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
a French guy.
yeah, he's another French guy. Yeah, he did a more than that one though too. I can't remember what else, but several of them I believe. He did some good movies.
You know, there was a guy who did the composer for The Theory of Everything. If I'm not mistaken, he passed away recently.
Oh,
Like he was very young. And I remember that score being fairly memorable.
I wanted to see that movie. I didn't see it.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was a okay movie. Not amazing, but yeah, Johannes Johansson. He died at age 48. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. Like it's like exactly when he blew up. He did Arrival, Sicario. Like he
Oh
did a few.
man,
Yeah, like it's just when he was like kind of like getting his career going. It's kind of the prisoners. Yeah, no, it's
gosh.
but yeah, I guess composers, I do feel like it's no longer what it used to be. That's my sense. Like I feel like Denny Elfman, if anything, is kind of like the last big one that was just has like a slew of like memorable scores, and since then something's happened. Johnny Greenwood, I really feel like is the only one that's a standout for me. But it's not to say that his scores are fairly memorable. Like his There Will Be Blood score is memorable, and oh boy, like my favorite modern score for sure is Phantom Thread.
Really?
I literally I listened to that music and I'm like, is that like a classical composition? Because it's that good. And then I look it up, it's like, no, it's Johnny Greenwood. Like he just wrote like a classical piece that sounds like it was from like the 16th century. Like it's amazing. Like it's incredible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got the whole Jaws theme, and there will be like dun 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 dun.
The funny thing is, like, I didn't mean to cut you off, Gil.
No, go ahead.
Since we brought up Danny Elfman so much, and by we I mean you, with the new Batman movie, Danny Elfman scored the Michael Keaton Batman movies.
Oh yeah.
And then we had Hans Zimmer, and then this time we've got Michael Giacchino for the Batman. Vastly different approaches. I mean, my personal opinion is that Michael Giacchino beat like blew Hans Zimmer out of the water. But I don't know if I don't really know how to compare him to the Danny Elfman scores, but just in terms of Batman music,
The Danny Elfman was the whole dark, mysterious, very memorable score, and then Hans Zimmer, especially The Dark Knight, he went sort of like psychotic breakdown music. You know, the whole
yeah,
the pitch, the high pitch feedback thing. Yeah, so I think it's just different approaches, but it definitely feels like to me what it, and maybe this will be like just to wrap up what I feel about Hans Zimmer is that in Interstellar, which is one of his best scores, Christopher Nolan had to trick him. Like he told them, "Hey, listen, I'm working on this movie, top secret. It's about a father. I don't know if he said son or daughter relationship, but just said like, you know, it's like a personal small movie. Like write me a theme for it." And then he told him like, well, it's actually a science fiction and it's huge, so I want you to keep that theme but make it bigger. Like, so the fact that you have to trick your composer in order for him to do better work is
yeah,
problematic.
Wait, which movie was that for?
For Interstellar.
Oh wow.
Like I really feel like with Dark Knight, which I really feel like that's a Nolan thing. He brought a lot of the idea from the music
Sure.
that he built on, that Hans Zimmer built on, because he really had a very specific thing for the Dark Knight. That's why it's such a singular vision. And then he did something similar with Interstellar, where he kind of like tricked him to get better work out of him. Not this, it's the job of a director, but it's just to say that like Hans Zimmer is just a factory of music. He just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like this is like thum 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 thum, you know, like but to really squeeze out good stuff out of him, yeah, like Nolan had to cajole him. I don't know. It's
I,
just not a mark of a great composer. It's a mark of a good composer, but that's in my opinion.
I don't want to sound overly critical, but what you're saying is very close to some things that some composer friends of mine have said about him as well.
Yeah, and obviously this is all just we're just talking shit, and the guy is insanely talented, and he deserves everything that like he you know he's
yeah. I mean,
uh
I can't even read music, so
yeah,
Yeah, well,
exactly.
me
But
neither.
but it's just to say, as far as like from our like armchair like point of view, and just like looking at the overview, I can't put him in the pantheon of the John Williams, the Ennio
No.
Morricone, or not even Clint Mansell. Even though Mansell hasn't, he's kind of dipped a bit. I haven't seen it. Like I would actually take Johnny Greenwood right now as the new modern master of like, you know, cinematic scores. I think he was the only good thing in Power of the Dog. Is the score? The score was
yeah,
exceptional. No, it wasn't a bad movie, but he elevated that movie with the music.
it was kind of a bad movie, but
Yeah. But in any case, it does feel like there's a bit of a drought. Like I don't know if maybe it's just like it's the phase that we are with music right now. There's not a lot of adventurous stuff out there, and there's pretty
No.
adventurous movies, but
Sometimes.
music is an afterthought. It's also, I guess, the way that they do it too, about like how the composer is always brought in way late in the process.
Yeah.
You know, that whole thing. And apparently Johnny Greenwood sometimes composes scores. I think for Spencer, he composed scores for Pablo Loren, and he sent it to him so you can play it in the while they're shooting. You know, that's what Sergio Leone did with
yeah,
Ennio. Like that's the type of relationship that you need to have with the director, and then you really create something unique and very, not just like let me find something that matches this image, which is what music has become for the most part. Like late in the process.
Yeah. It's funny you brought that up. I think I told you guys about this already probably, but there's this one anime movie that's really good, and the director like teamed up with a, you know, with a band, kind of like what you were talking about before, to make the music for it, and he wanted them to be so involved that he got them in, you know, to start making music for it really early on, just based off of concepts and stories and some of the script and stuff like that, well before they were into production. And it took them a while, but they had a number of songs made for the movie. And when the story is that when the guy heard the songs that they had written, he thought it was so good and so appropriate for what he was doing that he actually went back and started making changes to the movie to fit it to the songs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point about the. I think Kubrick also, to some degree or another, like did some stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I mean Terrence Malick. I mean specifically with the New World, he already had a finished score before he went into editing, and he just cut it to the music.
Wow.
I wonder if that's what happened with Interstellar too, because the whole thing that Nolan spoke to Hans Zimmer, like if he got the
Yeah.
themes early on and then they went into production. So
I
yeah,
don't know.
it's interesting, but it's not to say there's no standout like um, music here and there, but it's no longer what it used to be, where it was just really really memorable. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I mean, I think that there's an issue now where the biggest adventure movies, well, either they're Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, in which basically the score has already been set in place like 10 years ago. You know, like there's already been something set, and you're just working off of that. Even if you bring in a new composer, hey, we set up these specific moments, these specific tunes, these specific riffs, uh, you know, like 10 years ago, just go with those. Just follow the formula. Just like the cinematographers need to follow the formula, just like everybody else needs to follow the formula in order to maintain continuity. The other big, like, you know, quote unquote adventure movies, say even like, you know, and actually it was is funny that there was an article that came out, you know, mentioning that the Batman has become the most successful DC extended universe movie, and the first thing that I thought is, can you really argue that this is a DCEU movie?
It's absolutely not.
I mean,
Whoever wrote that doesn't know what they're talking about.
right. I mean,
I think it
it's
was
just
I think it's the studios that are trying to write that.
yeah,
It's like
right. And the trend in that direction has been for the last several years to go really dark and gritty and grim and rough. And so you don't get themes like Jurassic Park where there's like this wondrous theme to the music, and oh, we're exploring this wondrous new civilization or this brilliant new world. We're actually getting into the grit and the grime and the horror of what humanity can be. And it's just so rare to actually have a movie nowadays that's a standalone, that isn't a franchise movie, that is just a standalone. Okay, we are going to go on an adventure. We are going to go on an adventure, and it is just going to be a movie, and you're going to sit in the movie theater for 2.5 hours, and it's just going to be exploration and adventure and fun. It is just so rare nowadays that those movies even exist.
Yep.
well, I feel like the Marvel movies are in some sense are that, but yeah, they're very generic and very set and very episodic. Yeah, I think there's some of them, but we're just not seeing them. You know, there's like that movie that just came out, Uncharted, and a few other ones that are coming out, like adventure movies. But it's not for us. Like, well, I don't know. But and they make a lot of money. These movies, like I think Uncharted made a lot of money because of Tom Holland. Um,
Well, it's based off of an incredibly popular video
video
game.
game. Yeah, yeah. No.
I
One
don't
thing I
know.
also yeah. Go
Maybe
ahead.
I'll try to see it this week and see if there's any good music in it.
So I can listen to the theme online.
Yeah.
I do want to say whether I don't know this is if it's going to post before or after our prior episode about where we mentioned Spielberg and Schindler's List. There's one thing to note about John Williams, because like maybe some people would be critical of him because he's all themes and all bombastic and stuff, but the best thing about Schindler's List is the music. The music is heartbreaking. Like it's there's like a story about like Itzhak Perlman, like the famous violinist, when he asked him to perform it for the recording, he got the music sheet and he's like, John, how did you come up with this? Like, are you like a quarter Jew or something? Like it was just so Jewish, so like authentic, so heartbreaking. And he said, and he was like telling him like, well, I kind of got my start like being like a trainee like composer on Fiddler on the Roof. So I kind of cut my teeth on that. So like I got my exposure to Jewish music. So it's like, that's where it came from, that experience. So as much as people say that like John Williams is like the Star Wars and the Superman scores and all those big scores, Jurassic Park, Jaws, like that score is not bombastic, and it's just beautifully tragic and heartbreaking. And so you got to give him props. He's not just a noisy composer. He's got a lot of heart for sure. I mean, he does, yeah, even in the big scores. But like here, it's just he really showed a depth that's like, yeah. So he is special, like just as people make him out to be.
Yeah.
Although he kind of ripped off Stravinsky, like when he did the Star Wars score stuff, but it's okay. Everybody steals from everybody, and that's partially because of George Lucas's fault, because Stravinsky was the temp music for Star Wars, and then once he heard it, was like, oh shit, this is too perfect. I just need to emulate this.
I'm trying to remember if it was Picasso or somebody else who said that good artists borrow, great artists steal. But kind of screwed up that quote there. But
I think we said it once before, so
yeah.
Not that everybody listens to all these episodes, but
I find it interesting when genres of music, genres of movies, or like subgenres of movies, either way, tend to like all have like certain types of music, like obviously like you kind of get a lot of the same sort of stuff in like various noir films and obviously not all that much interesting music in like murder thrillers and stuff like that and various things like that, but like I just find it interesting like when a really good movie will come out, like if you think about it, like there aren't that many. You could probably count on your fingers how many great pirate movies have been made, and yet like when that Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out, like you listen to that score and it's like you instantly think about like pirates. You're like, oh my gosh, like it's like like all the other 5 or 6 whatever great pirate movies that there's been, it's like it just feels right. It's just like you're like, wow, geez, it's like feels like a pirate movie, like a pirate score, pirate music. Obviously westerns, they all kind of have like a thing.
That's true. Yeah, westerns for sure had a thing until the whole spaghetti western kind of blew it out of the water.
Yeah,
but
and that's what it's so great when somebody does a really great job breaking the mold, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that was Claus Badlet.
Who did what?
Badelt, who did the score for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just remember like thinking like, wow, man, it's great. It's like Cutthroat Island or have you guys ever seen The Seahawk?
No.
It's really good. It's a old Errol Flynn movie after Captain Blood, but I think it was after Adventures of Robin Hood also. But anyway, it's a really good movie, but has a fantastic score. It's like just so adventurous and spectacular.
I recall the Prince of Thieves having a pretty good score.
Yeah, that one's good too, and it has that song by
Bryan Adams.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to think like artists that were big in the 90s.
Well, for some reason, when I said it, all that my mind went to was a different movie that he did. The song for was the Three Musketeers one.
Three
He did that song with
Musketeers
Sting and Peter
and Rod
Gabriel or
Stewart.
something like that.
Rod Stewart.
Oh, was it Rod Stewart?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Like I thought I started thinking about that one, and I was like remembering all the other names, and then you said it, and I was like, yeah, Peter Gabriel. I'm sorry, Bryan Adams. There it is. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah, one thing I should mention, because we always shortchange comedies, is the Mel Brooks movies. There's a guy who wrote the music for the great music for Young Frankenstein and Spaceballs and most of the movies. Like there's some like comedy is not known for having memorable like theme, but
yeah.
if you listen to that, John Morris, yeah. If you listen to the score of like Young Frankenstein, and yeah, it's like it's almost like yeah, Schindler's List good. Like it's just a really good score. Like it's
Looks like he did.
the whole the
He did
theme where
Elephant
he
Man
on the
also.
violin, like when he like calls the monster and stuff. I don't know
Oh
if he
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah na, 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 na,
Uh-huh.
na, na, na. Like a very like Transylvania type of music. It's like
Yeah.
it's not like known that like composers for comedies like have any standout scores, and also his Spaceball score is pretty
Yeah.
memorable.
When
And
you said he did all the Mel Brooks movies, the first thing I thought of was like, did he do that really cool like thing where they're trying to sound in High Anxiety, where they're trying to sound like kind of a North by Northwest kind of thing?
yeah, I
And
think
he did do High Anxiety. I
did
just
he?
looked it up right now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, High Anxiety. There's some good music stuff. Yeah, just for
Yeah.
that alone, it's worth.
Well, they're just trying so hard to get that point across of like what kind of movie they're doing. It's so great.
Yeah, History of the World also part one has like some good music there, even though the movie is so. So yeah, he is kind of like his John Williams in a way. Like he did kind of like elevate his movies to some degree because he just kind of had this like little of extra oomph to it, because Mel Brooks generally he was always big on music, so it makes sense that it would play a big part of his movies. Yeah, no, it's not a lot of comedy composers that are standout. So
No.